gonna.
I'll say the next episode is one of my favorites.
It's one of. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh.
That's a.
That's a good episode.
There you go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Pointless Discourse. My name's Hoppocalypse, and I'm here with Gideon.
Hello.
We're more than a quarter way through our current media spree. That's what I'll call it. Or watch through.
We are here 1/4 through the form of Gravity Falls.
Don't worry, guys. I was fighting with taxes. Yay, growing up.
Yes, to watch this episode, make sure that you take your A bracket and add it with the C bracket and a third form that you can't find unless you go on this other website that you can upload once you get a 392 to go with your 875B. And you can just throw out random numbers and it will still sound like a real tax form. Really makes you wonder, is this made up? But hey, did you know that there are Twin Peaks references in this show?
I had no clue. We've talked about that before, but go on.
I know. That's I think the last episode I was saying, yeah, this one I literally said. Hirsch, a fan of Twin Peaks, was surprised that a lot of viewers noticed the references. How was he surprised? It's literally like on the picture, it's like showing two screens. I'm like, yeah, it's literally the same room.
Well, Twin Peaks is a bit of a cult classic, not really like...
I'm not part of a cult.
It's not nearly as popular in media as, say, the Street Fighter and all that.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Twin Peaks, it might just be my wheelhouse. Wait a second, is that Twin Peaks thing on Netflix? I have Netflix now, guys.
I don't remember.
For at least 6
It
months.
keeps like moving who's got it. Because I started
Isn't that on Showtime?
It might be now. I started watching it, but I never got around to being able to finish it.
Is that what, do we have that now? No, we have Stars.
Stars.
That I keep getting the email, hey, took $3. And I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should cancel that soon.
Yeah, we won't need movie subscriptions until at least October.
Mm-hmm.
When we wrap this up and we start our next long watch through.
Yes.
That one's even longer than this one. We just got to compile that full list and order.
It'll be a longer watch through, but a more complex. It will be more of what the end of last year was after well-dressed man, I forgot his name, Ted. Better Off Ted.
Better Off Ted.
that came up, I think, recently with like for like season 2, and I'm like, oh yeah, there is one of those. It's like we watched that show and then never looked back at it. But it is what it is. Yeah. I don't know. There's only so much that you can take of, you know what, all your problems would be all covered if you just, I don't know, talked like adults, but then the show wouldn't exist.
Yeah, I blanked out those parts and just remembered the comedic parts that I enjoyed.
Yeah, it was your cell.
Yeah. Because the funny parts are very funny, and it has some good commentary in it, but...
I think if the show was just the two scientist guys having to like deal with the demands of upper management, Ted coming down, being a nice, cool dude, and then I forgot, jealous blonde lady, I forgot her name.
Veronica.
It's not Veronica. No, Veronica's the upper management, right?
Oh, yeah, she's upper management. It's Lindsay?
Letitia. I don't know. But yeah, it's
like if it was centered on the scientists and then they had to deal with the hijinks from everybody else, that kind of format.
Yeah, because it's like...
It's a little too sitcom-y in some places.
Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know. I'm on the record in multiple areas of saying I'm not a big fan of sitcoms, but I will watch it for content. So, but yeah, that is what it is, and what we're watching is not is not content. No, what we're watching is not sitcom.
Mm-mm.
It is all comms.
With romance
Yes.
subplots every couple of episodes.
With what subplots?
Romance.
No, those are all the plots. There was something else I wanted to mention, and then I can't remember because brain's going in like 30 places at once. Have you ever watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Yeah, it's been a really long time though.
Yeah. It's like when, hey guys, so a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. I watched the episode because I forgot to, and like last night I was like, I'm going to watch this, and then I had to like write something before I went to bed. And like I started writing a little bit, and then like I opened up my eyes and realized I held down the Y key for like 3 lines. I'm like, I'm not watching Gravity Falls tonight, because especially since I gotta wake up early. So I'm like, okay, just erase these last 3 lines, and I'll deal with this tomorrow. and then I woke up and remembered, well, I gotta walk, otherwise I'm not gonna be doing that, and. Which, like, now I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, I could have walked while my first load of laundry was in there. But never question the Itisdpayne brain. Because I don't. But yeah, we did that. But yeah, as watching this episode, I was like, man, I haven't watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in, like, forever. And this episode has to do with shrinking and growing. Alright, that's the connection. If you haven't watched episode 11, Little Dipper. But yeah, there's a few things I remember from that whole series, because there's like 3 movies. Mm-hmm. There might be a 4th. There's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and then Honey, I Shrunk the Parents, and then Honey, I Exploded the Toddler or something.
Yeah, I did not watch the other 2. I only remember watching the first one.
The second one's fun because it's the same concept as the first one, but it's the parents, and the the kids don't know that the parents are shrunk, and what they're trying to do is, like, instead of like trying to traverse the backyard, they pretty much get into the house while this party's going on. Mm-hmm. And like they're able, like, we need to let everyone know, like, we're here before they make bad teenager decisions. But then, like, while in doing this, as they're getting mad at like their like older daughter and like son inviting like over, not the bullies, but like teenagers of ill repute and just their like free house, let's wreck it. Mm-hmm. Very much a thing in the 90s.
In every movie.
Yeah. Them getting mad at that, but then like seeing how like their kids are, like, how they like make their stand together, and like they know how to deal with stress and all that stuff, because there's like one part where this kid, so yeah, pretty much what happens is, like, when they get spotted by one of the kids who doesn't know about the machine and sees the shrunk versions of his parents, and he just faints, like, just passes out, just like, what the? And so they're like, what do we do? And like the main character, the smart dad's son's just like, oh, quick, get him bananas because we need to give him potassium. And is like, the parents are like, oh wait, they do listen, they know what they're doing. Like, oh cool. And then like they have to go in and like hot wire a stereo so that way they change it into a microphone. And I'm like, I don't think that's how that works.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, but it was like pretty much like, hey, we have a green screen and CGI, so let's do this. As he goes and traverses a giant computer board and throws some tinfoil down to switch it over. And I remember that part too, because the other dad is just like, yes, this is the voice of God. What are you doing to her? It's like, stop being a bully. And like the teens are just like, what the heck? And like the kids are like, that's our dad. Like, where the heck is he? So there's that. And then the last one is like pure just fun because they oh, what is it? It's not that it gets stolen, but I think like the government or something takes the ray, and somehow they reverse it, and it changes. I don't remember the beginning, but pretty much like the toddler, they have a toddler now, and it gets hit with the ray at some point, but it acts slower, and so like over time the toddler just keeps growing until it's a giant toddler, and they treat it like a kaiju because I think they call in like the military and they start shooting at the toddler because it's ruining Las Vegas, and they're just like, stop shooting my kid. But it's like not doing any damage, so the toddler's just picking up tanks and just like having temper tantrums. I think what they end up doing, spoilers for this like probably 15-year-old movie, they make the mom big, and baby's like, oh, okay. But like the baby's like a size of like the tallest buildings of Las Vegas at that point. I'm like, how big is the mom now? Because it's like appropriate size, and I'm like,
like relative, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay. I don't know how far from ground to Atmo to break through and not have air, but whatever.
Look, you can't think about it too much because it's got giant
I can't help
baby.
it. I can't help it. But yes, we are on limited time today because we got distracted. One for an important reason, me remembering I had Netflix and seeing what was on there.
Yes, and then I'm being dragged out of the house. But my time constraint, I think, is a little bit more loose because the person that I meet up with is chronically late. But so I said the time that they told me, but I'm anticipating, I have a little bit of wiggle room. But in any case, yes. So this episode,
you're just gonna get a text message. Where are you? Like in 20 minutes, just like ah.
Yeah. So we are continuing through Gravity Falls. Dpayne shared the fact of the week for this episode, and he also mentioned it's a Little Dipper episode, which involves shrinkage and growage and everything in between, I guess.
And hairage. And mirrorage, and forgetfulnessage,
and uncleage, grunkleage.
Yes, and sausage.
Yes, but let's roll our dice to see who gets to explain this episode. We roll dice because we play role-playing games, things like that. Dpayne has his video diaries of him developing a system. If you're curious about that, look at that plugging in.
Oh, I was like. My brain translated as video diarrhea, and I'm like, what? Which would fit. It is verbal diarrhea. Yeah. I don't know who watches those things, but I'm like, I don't know. Someone might find this fun.
It could be fun for you to look back at, too.
Yeah. What's real fun is, like, as I go to edit them, I'm like, I can see where I said something, and it caused thought to happen. Because the flow goes from yeah to oh, okay, yeah, and like my brain is actually working it out, while the other part of my brain's like, keep it under 10 minutes. No one wants to watch a 20-minute video of just straight theory.
All right. So yeah. I rolled pretty well this week on my phone. How have the dice treated you?
It's a lower middling roll. I have rolled a 9.
15 for me this week. So it's another one of me describing the episode.
Yeah, what, are you sick this week?
The dice have decided. No voice for Hop. So
I will say I've done this before, but like this morning I had to go. I didn't have to. I wanted, and me and my friend planned to go get breakfast. And it got to that thing where I'm just like, we both like, we don't care where to eat. And like, I'm in the middle of driving. And in my head, I'm just like, I'm driving. I'm like, I would just roll a D20 right now and say this is where we're going. And I'm like, you have a D20 near you? I was like, do this. Odds are this, evens are that. And he's like, I rolled a 3. I'm like, we're going here then.
Easy.
And so, but then he put hashtag I'm friends with a cheater, and I'm like, wait a second. Are you calling me a cheater, or did you cheat just to choose the restaurant between that or IHOP? Because I could understand not really wanting to go to IHOP. But,
So you ready to jump into the episode synopsis?
yes.
Spoiler, warnings, surprise.
Yeah, suck a lemon, little people.
That doesn't sound good at all.
Well, that's what somebody says. Instead of people, he puts man. Oh, wait, never mind. It's just written. I also have the transcript up, so I will
help with direct quotes.
Yes.
All right. So we have this episode where we start off with Gideon trying to figure out what he wants to do to get revenge on the Pines family. He goes through his different options, such as the wiki says demon caterpillars and blood rain. But then he says he figures out what it is that he has to do. So then we cut directly back to the mystery shack, and the family's all hanging out in the living room. And a man knocks on the door, and Stan answers the door and goes, tax collectors! And, like, starts throwing the magic disappearing dust. He's like, I'm gone! And he goes and opens up, like, a hidden area behind, I think it's a frame, right?
It's like a frame or a bookshelf. It's
just a false, like, covering. And he pulls out a wad of cash and starts screaming, where's the trap?
It's more than a wad. It's a duffel bag bursting with cash.
And he's like, where's the trap door? Is this the trap door? Is this the trap door? And he's freaking out, trying to hide the money. And the man that was at the door goes, does the spiel of something that is not on TV anymore, if anyone even watches cable TV anymore, where they used to have this thing where people were randomly visited and told that they won a bunch of money. I don't even know how you qualified for it.
I can Google. I can look it up.
Okay. But yeah, so this man comes in, he introduces himself as, I think they call it in this, like, the Great Coupon Sweepstakes, and they tell them that they've won $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy says there's one stipulation. They have, like, a camera crew and all this stuff, and balloons, and they're like, you have to sign here. So then Grunkle's Stan looks like he signs the form, and Gideon pops through the large check, which is a fake check, and goes, ha, I got it, your mystery shack is mine, and is trying to claim it. And Grunkle Stan's like, nah, you might want to check the signature again. And the signature says, suck a lemon, little man. Yeah. And Gideon is very upset by this, and he starts shouting about how he's going to get his revenge. And my favorite thing in this episode is him with his arms up going like, And he's like, I need your arms, lawyer man. So then the lawyer picks up Gideon from under the armpits just high enough so he can make eye contact with Grunkle Stan and point and yell at him.
Yeah, here's the line. He's like, I'm not a threat to be taken lightly. Come here, hon. I need your arms. And gets picked up. I'll get you all.
Yeah, he's like asking for what I like to call uppies.
Yeah. I couldn't find it mainly because I couldn't think of the name of the checks that were given back in the day. And when I typed in how shows that gave away giant checks, it's like, here's your stimulus check. I was like, no. I don't want to read this. I didn't get any.
Yeah, so then Gideon leaves the mystery shack, and then later we have Mabel and Dipper playing chess. And Seuss is working in the shop trying to, like, set up shelves, and eventually asks Mabel to get him the brain in the jar. And then you look at them playing chess. Mabel has her whole, like, sweater full of the knights, and Dipper's like, why do you keep stealing the little horses? And she's like, they're happy you're here. It makes a horse sound as she, like, caresses them.
It's like a good horse noise.
Yeah, it's a very good horse noise. And then Dipper, he announces checkmate, and you see that he has this notebook where he's tallied each time he's beat her in chess, and it's just covered fully, and Mabel's not won a single game.
Correct.
And then Dipper gets upset at Seuss asking Mabel to get the brain in the jar for him, and Seuss is like, well, you see, Mabel's taller than you. And Dipper can't believe it because he says that they've been the same height their entire life. And then Seuss takes out a measuring tape and compares the two of them and says that Mabel is in fact a millimeter taller than Dipper. And Dipper was like, so what? Nobody even counts millimeters. No one measures in that. It's not even real. Because he's very hurt by it. And then it kind of starts an onslaught of puns about how short Dipper is. And Mabel is very excited to know that she's taller than him. Do you have the transcript up so you can quote some of the puns?
Yes. Let me scroll down here. This was a part that I really, really liked. Let's see. So, let's see. Yeah, so it starts off with like, well, don't you see what's happening to her? I'm a millimeter. This millimeter is just the beginning. I'm evolving into a superior being, bigger, stronger.
Alpha twin.
Like, yeah, like some sort of alpha twin. And Mabel starts doing that. Yeah, no one uses millimeters. They only make you taller in Canada. And that's when Mabel's like, you know what? I've always wanted a little brother. You know who knew I already had one. And then this is one of my favorite lines in this episode. Stan comes in. I was awoken by the sound of mockery. Where is it? Show me the object of ridicule. And that's when Mabel's like, I'm taller than Dipper. Dipper by 1 millimeter. And that's when Stan's like, hey, you don't get to get short with your sister. Stan's. I got the characters mixed up. Stan's. Yeah, don't get short with your sister, Mabel. Now, Grunkle Stan, I hope you don't think little of him. Stan, and another great line right here. He's like, yeah, and he's short. And they just start laughing, and then
poor Seuss.
And he's with not in any attempt to be mean. It's just, hey, maybe I should lay off a tiny bit. And then they're just like, Susan it on now too. And that's when Dipper waddles away.
Yeah, and Seuss looks upset. He really didn't mean to do another joke for it. So then, yeah, Dipper finds himself in his bedroom looking through his journal to see if there must be a solution for it and everything. And he finds that there's a section where the writer of the journal's like, I believe there might be some height-altering crystals or properties in this area, as the person has seen, like, animals of different sizes just like grown and shrunk in ways you wouldn't expect. So Dipper finds himself wandering into that exact area of the forest, and he stumbles upon like the smallest little deer he's ever seen. It's very miniature, and he's sitting there, and also I forget what the other animal he sees, but he ends up standing there where he's surrounded by these crystals, and there's a mountain lion that spots him, and Dipper's like, is that really tiny or is that just perspective? And then the mountain lion growls at him and starts to run. He's like, perspective, it was perspective, oh, it's normal. And it happens to jump through a beam. I think it's Pink, right? Pink is shrinking, so it jumps
yeah, should be. Yeah, I'll confirm it. Unless, did you just read it in the thing?
I'm going off the top of my head.
Right here. The pink light makes things smaller, blue light makes things bigger.
Okay, yeah, so it jumps through the pink light and ends up small and runs through his vest and tries to bite him, but it's only the size of his thumb. And Dipper's like, oh, it still hurts, but, like, not a lot. So then the little creature runs away, and while he's standing there, he also sees that a butterfly flies through the blue light and goes from I think pink light to shrink, and then blue light to get really massive, and then it flies and knocks over a whole tree. And Dipper's like, oh, neat. So he picks away one of the rocks, one of the crystals, and attaches it to a flashlight. So he ends up in his room, and he tests it on a chess piece, where he's like shrinking it and making it grow, but he lets it grow so big that it ends up crashing through the roof of the house. He's like, oh, too much. So he ends up using it to let himself grow that millimeter taller. And he goes and confronts Mabel about it and tries to say that they're the same height again. And Mabel's like, yeah, I don't think so. And so Dipper goes ahead and leaves and comes back even taller. And he keeps claiming, oh, it's puberty, I just had my growth spurt. No biggie. But
isn't he like, yeah, when he first comes in, he's like, now he's a millimeter taller, and they're like, I might grow a little bit more. And he's like, well, I feel like there's another growth spurt coming on.
And then Mabel exclaims, she says, what is it? It's like, well, I started growing first, so I'm going to be the alpha twin still, which upsets Dipper. But
that's when he says it.
Yeah, and then Mabel ends up suspecting that there must be something magical and follows Dipper back when he says, after his second growth spurt. So yes. She follows him back and is like, you're using something, you're doing something. And... oh, the part I forgot that I thought was funny is when Dipper was complaining about being short and first goes to his room to get the journal. He can't reach his journal and is jumping up and down, so he has to kick the bookshelf to drop the journal into his hands.
It's like, how do you even get it up there? Because it's like, he never lets that thing go.
No. But yeah, so then Mabel starts saying, it must be magic. So she goes over to a closet. She's like, are you telling me there isn't going to be a wizard in this closet if I open it? And Dipper's like, no, there won't be. And then she slams the door open. She's like, invisible wizard, Dipper, how could you?
And then it's just berating nothing.
Yeah.
Because isn't this when it switches to somebody else while this is all going on?
Does it switch over? I thought they end it with Dipper ending up having to ends up giving her the flashlight.
No, that's after Gideon shows up at this point.
Oh, okay.
And this is when he comes with the 1,000 cursed Egyptian super termites. Which apparently is a thing. It's got a link on the wiki. Time to click it. Or is it just... okay, it's just in this. I don't know why they decided. Oh, because it's part of the creatures thing.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know.
While Dipper and Mabel are arguing, Gideon tries to show up with that jar, and Grunkle Stan just goes, what are you gonna do? And he's like, it'll eat the inside of the shack with you still stuck inside. And he does evil laughter. So Grunkle Stan just knocks it over, and the termites end up attacking Gideon specifically, and he runs away from the shack. Then Dipper and Mabel, Dipper ends up revealing that he has a flashlight, and Mabel says that she wants it. But the thing that's funny about her arguing with him about it is they've set the scene so you can see the giant chess piece right behind them. Yes. And Mabel has not noticed it at all as she's trying to figure out what's going on. So eventually she takes the flashlight from Dipper, and they run out, and the two of them are having like a fight in the yard where they're growing and shrinking different parts of each other. Like Mabel tests it, makes her hand big, and Dipper's like, don't worry, I can shrink it. And then Mabel ends up making Dipper's head gigantic so he can't walk around. So then Dipper makes her head tiny and look like a shrunken head. And they're going...
Imagine there was two flashlights.
So they're going back and forth and fighting about it. Eventually they fight, and the flashlight gets knocked out of their hands and ends up in front of Gideon as Gideon's being grumbly and trying to walk away from everything. And Gideon picks it up, and Mabel's like, maybe he won't know it's a magical flashlight that can grow and shrink things. And Dipper is like, really? And you zoom out, and Gideon is within earshot, even though she tried to whisper it to Dipper. So he immediately shrinks the two of them and puts them in his jar with the air holes in the lid and takes it back to his house. I did like that scene where she's like, maybe he won't notice. And you zoom out, and he's like standing right there.
Dipper is very much like, really? For real?
Yeah, so then Gideon starts to explain, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get the mystery shack, I'm going to get your uncle, blah, 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 evil plans and all that. So he picks up Mabel by, like, the sweater, puts her in a bag of gummy koalas, to which she starts eating them because they're the same size as her. So she's taking her time eating these now massive, essentially gummy bears. And Gideon starts to interrogate Dipper, and he's like, he takes the lamp from his desk and is like, all right, tell me, who taught you about this magic? Did you read it somewhere? And Dipper, like, kind of rearranges his vest to hide his journal, and he's like, no.
This just one thing that is I think worth sharing real quick is that before this we find out that his dad Bud runs a used car dealership.
Yes, because he walks through the car dealership, and Bud is like, what you got in your jar, buddy?
Yeah. He also, and he's just like, my will secret, and everyone's like, oh.
And then Gideon walks away, stupid people are so idiots.
Yeah, mouth breathing fools. And then, yeah, And then it's the first time we see his mom
poor
or mother, which it's just like, man, she's got. I can't remember. She's pretty
riddled
sure
with anxiety for sure.
Yeah, like it's two different reactions to a monster child in that family.
Yes, you have Gideon's mom who's like, just keep vacuuming.
Yep.
And his dad is like, oh buddy, whatever you want, whatever make my little man happy. And she's just like, ah. So ultimately Dipper to get Gideon to leave him alone blows an air horn in Gideon's ear, and Gideon of course gets angry with him. So then it flashes back to the mystery shack where you see Sue setting up mirrors, and Grunkle Stan walks in. He's like, this is the most genius idea you've let me steal from you, Seuss. This mirror maze, I'm gonna make so much money. And they're just setting up like normal house mirrors, like full-length mirrors, over and over again, so you see multiple copies of each other. Mm-hmm. And Stan ends up taking off his hat and puts his hat down to admire the maze, and Seuss puts it on and goes, one day. Very excitedly. So then while Stan's walking around and takes his hat off, then he hears the phone ringing, goes over and answers it, and Gideon is like, I have the twins. And Stan's like, no, I just saw them in the yard a few minutes ago. He's like, no, I have them here right now. You're gonna give me the deed to the mystery shack or you'll never see them again. And Stan's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, I'll prove it to you. I'll send you a text over the phone. He's like, text over the phone? You're not even speaking English anymore. Oh boy. And like hangs up on him.
Hangs up. It's like, and Gideon, it's like, it is the correct reaction between both of them, because like Stan as a man in, what does it ever say how old he is? Let's see if I can find
I don't know if they've
quick.
ever for the
in his 60s, it says. He's somewhere in his 60s, having to deal with a 10-year-old. It's like,
essentially, yeah.
That it totally makes sense. Like a 60-year-old isn't going to take a 10-year-old seriously. While like Gideon, as we go forward and learn some other things, is like, no, it's like he knows things. And so it's just like, but he's just also a little freakazoid. So
yeah. So then Gideon in his anger puts his hamster down. I forget his hamster's name. They say it a few times. Or gerbil. Yeah. I think it's a gerbil.
I'll find it real quick.
Guinea pig. That's more appropriate.
I think it was a guinea pig. I think it's right here in the transcript. I forgot when they're eating ice cream and he's like, clean me. And this
yes.
Where's his face? Cheekums.
Cheekums, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. There are different points where you see Gideon and his dad interacting, and Gideon just gets angry and his dad gives him what he wants, and then Gideon does little baby kid things in response to his dad treating him like a baby, but then also doesn't like being treated like a baby. But yeah, his dad calls him over for the ice cream truck at this point too, right?
That's how they get him out of the room, and that's when he puts Cheekums up to
guard them.
Guard him, and then and then he like warns them and all that stuff, and then that's when Mabel and Dipper have like the conversation of like, we got to go save Stan, and it's just like, how we can do this? He's got like a gazillion inches on us.
Yeah, and then Mabel tries to climb on Cheekums. Oh yeah, Dipper pokes Cheekums with a Q-tip to see if he's violent. And Mabel's like, oh, you're just a little dummy dum-dum.
Yep.
So then Mabel climbs on the back of Cheekums when they try and come up with an escape plan. She's like, go! And he doesn't move. So she keeps trying to ride him like a horse, and he's not moving. They ultimately tie a rope of Gideon's hair from a hairbrush that he constantly uses throughout the episode. And they're able to climb down. As they climb down, they end up watching the family as they're sitting there eating their ice cream. Yeah, because the mom's just on the couch, and Bud and Gideon are sitting on the couch eating and enjoying their ice cream from the ice cream truck.
I think she's just vacuuming. I think that's all she does. Oh, it's vacuuming,
yeah. And then Gideon's like, Dad, can I get a ride to the mystery shack? And Bud's like, oh, I gotta sell cars. And he like freaks out and he's like, oh, I hate you. So Bud starts to tickle him. Gideon does clearly enjoys being tickled and then starts to scream. He's like, what have I told you about tickling me? He's like,
tickling is no laughing matter.
He's like, that's right. He's like, I'm gonna go take the bus. And Bud's like, do you still want the ride to the mystery shack? And Gideon's like, no, I'm taking the bus. As if that's like gonna hurt his dad's feelings, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
And then flips a table and kicks a door.
And just keep vacuuming. Just keep vacuuming.
Yeah, just keep vacuuming. And that's when Bud's like, precious moments. And I'm like,
memories.
Yeah, memories. And I'm just like, sir.
This isn't very precious. So then we have Dipper and Mabel take a doggy door, even though I see no signs of a dog. Maybe they had a dog.
It's for the hamster.
Oh, okay.
It's a big hamster.
They run out the doggy door and they end up climbing on top of the car dealership that Bud owns, on top of a for sale balloon. And while they're on top of it, they're observing Gideon and trying to figure out how they can beat him to the mystery shack, where Gideon is sitting next to Lazy Susan. And Lazy Susan's like, where are you going today?
Such a fun conversation.
Gideon's like, to take down an entire family and gain revenge, or something along those lines.
I have the line here. Okay. I'm going to annihilate my arch enemy's entire family. And Lazy's like, oh, okay.
Yay. And she's just like, so, like, very awkward.
It's like, okay, the youths.
And then he gets on the bus, and then Dipper and Mabel decide to cut free the balloon, and miraculously, I would have never been able to control this thing, but they're able to like move the balloon and such so that they can fly and get to the mystery shack just as soon as Gideon gets there. So they end up being able to intercept by ending up on the canopy to the entrance of the mystery shack, and Mabel has her half-eaten gummy koala in her pocket, and she drops it in Gideon's hair. Gideon's little arms can't reach his hair, so he's freaking out, and it's buying them time. And
it reminds me of, have you ever seen the videos when they put like a sticky note in the middle of a back of,
and they can't reach it?
Yeah, of like bodybuilders, and they're just like and they literally can't reach the middle of the back because their muscles are too big, and they're just like, and they're like, every time they're all taking a good sport, but they're just like, their whole arm is like bigger than my head, and they're just like able to only get it here, and they're like, I can't reach it. For people who are only listen to podcasts, they can only get it like above their head, and like can't reach behind their head to like even touch their back. That doesn't seem very helpful in a survival situation.
Not really, but it depends on what survival you need, I guess. But yeah, so then they do get access to the flashlight, Dipper and Mabel, and before they can get either of their heights back to normal, the two of them start arguing about how tall each of them should be. And Gideon catches them mid-arguing and was like, you would have foiled my plans if it wasn't for your bickering between siblings.
Siblings squabbling, I think it is.
So then he puts them in his pocket and then proceeds to head inside and immediately sees someone in there with Stan's hat and shrinks him without even thinking twice. And then he looks down as he's giving his monologue and he realizes it's Seuss. And he gets more mad. He's like, oh!
What does Susie... Hold on.
I forget what he says.
He's like, all right, something's definitely different here.
And puts on his own hat.
Yeah. And then he's like... And then he puts him in the jar, shakes it, and he's like, tell me where Stan is. And he's like, never. You'll never find Stan on the second floor down to the left down the hall. Wait, why did I just say that?
Oh, no. Yeah, so then he puts the trio into his shirt pocket and heads to the maze of mirrors. And that's when Dipper and Mabel kind of have their heart-to-heart with each other about, like, Dipper being like, why were you bullying me so much about, like, the millimeter of height? And Mabel's like, well, you win at literally everything. She pulls out his notebook and you see it's chess. checkers, like every possible game the two of them could play. It's all Dipper winning and Mabel never winning. So Mabel was like, I just wanted something where I felt like I could finally be winning. So then
chess, checkers, ping pong. I thought there was another one.
A fourth one, yeah.
And it's not written in the script or the transcript, and I don't see it here. But it could just be those three. I thought it was like a weird one. But
yeah, but ultimately they end up making up while in the pocket. So they try and make up a plan to try and get to Stan before Gideon can find him, because Gideon happens upon the mirror maze, and Grunkle Stan is mocking him entirely. And let's see. So, while they're walking up, they push the lid off the jar and they walk around, and Mabel's like, his hair is so shiny, and Dipper's like, don't look directly at it or you'll go blind. And Seuss is on the back of
Croquet. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
One.
I found it. I was like, there's another one here that they're not sharing. I just brought up the episode.
So then Seuss ends up in Gideon's neck fat, and he's like, look guys, I'm making fat angels. And then
that's when he gets scratched off, or
Gideon's like, the termites are back, and tries to like smack the back of his neck thinking it's one of them, and Seuss ends up falling into the carpet. And in the carpet, he stands up. He's like, oh, corn chip, I have found you. And is very content. To which Dipper and Mabel try to run over to the opposite pocket that has a flashlight. But they don't make it in time before Gideon decides to try and shoot a laser at who he thinks is Grunkle Stan, but is instead the reflection. So then oh my god, I don't know why I keep mixing up their names. But Gideon ends up having to fall to the floor as the reflection of the lights, the shrinking ray, are bouncing around all over the room. So
and then he becomes a vandal.
I know, he throws the flashlight out of anger at the mirror, and in his head he's like, oh, if I get rid of all the mirrors, I'll be able to find the real Stan. And Stan is like, those were 10, 20, 2, 500 each, and I'm gonna bill you for every one that you break.
Yeah.
So then, but right before Gideon can start to shrink Grunkle Stan, Dipper tells Mabel, to the armpit. She's like, no. And he's like, no, we gotta go. So they start tickling him, and he starts rolling on the floor. And Grunkle Stan's like, I think this whole, like, revenge thing is, like, getting to you. I think you need to, like, go. And he starts kind of, like, wheeling him out of the shack.
It's so great. He's just like, all right. And just starts kicking him. Not hard, just, like,
nudging him.
Like, as you would, like, kind of nudge or roll, like, a heavy barrel. Just, there we go, around the end table, out the door. There you go.
Yeah, so he's laughing the entire time because he's getting tickled, and Mabel and Dipper sneak out just in time to be able to make it to the flashlight and get themselves back to normal height. And then they go, oh yeah, we'll totally just destroy this crystal. We don't need it anymore. Like, they take a long time explaining why they need to destroy the crystal. And Mabel smashes it. She's like, die, die, die. And Seuss wanders up. And the broken out crystal spells out help Seuss. And Seuss is like, hey guys.
Well, it's the broken mirrors.
Oh, it's the broken mirrors that spell it out.
And then they're like, glue. Lots of glue. glue back. Wouldn't it be faster just to go back
and get a new one?
Or just toss them in the light? Like, it's obviously got two lights coming out. That's how we found out.
This is why I got mixed up. So this final scene is why I thought the mom was on the couch during the ice cream scene. Because when Gideon comes home, his parents are on the couch, and Gideon is pacing and really upset, and explains that he needs the physical building to the shack because there's a hidden secret in it. So then Bud is like, do you want some ice cream? And Gideon's like, did you take all the nuts out? He's like, yes. And he's like, come here.
That's good.
So then we end up in the end credits scene where the legitimate people with $10 million to give out go to the door, and Stan just shuts the door, assuming it's Gideon trying to do the trick again. And they go, the backup person is Old Man McGucket, but they say his full name.
Yeah, Fiddleford H. McGucket.
And then McGucket shows up and he's like, "Oh, my dreams come true!" And they're like, "Oh, we got to get this town off the list. We're done here."
He starts eating the check.
Yeah, he eats the top of it, and they're like, "Yeah, take this off the list.
Cross this down off the list."
Yeah. So there is the summary of the episode.
Yeah. So scrolling down to the bottom stuff, a lot of the things that they're like character revelations is stuff that we already kind of covered. Mm-hmm. I think I'm looking at there and it's like we mentioned all of these, so there's no point in mentioning it again.
Continuity though.
Yeah, let's see. So the model of the mystery shack is made out of popsicle sticks, and the dolls. Oh yeah, pretty much the models and dolls that Gideon makes are in this episode again, and he destroys them.
Mm-hmm. He rips off their heads and says, "I'll get you, Pine's family." Blah.
Yeah, and your meddling dog. Yeah. So, I didn't realize this. I missed this. That apparently the painting that stands still in the earlier episode when he goes to the Gleeful house is still missing, and it's just an empty void on the wall. Yep, and this is something you just mentioned that will come into later episodes, that there is a powerful secret underneath the mystery shack. That will be it will be brought up again in like another 8 episodes. And then and the last thing is literally a spoiler for the end of the show. So
we'll leave that one there.
Yes. I will say overall, like, even though I totally forgot this episode existed, I think it shows, like, I think there's a good chunk, because this is what, like, Gideon's third appearance.
Yeah. And it really shows his descent. Yeah. And also gives hints of he knows more than, like, before you're like, oh, he has cameras on everybody, that's why he knows everything. But this one kind of hints that, like, he has some insight on his stuff, because he did ask that very pointed question to Dipper. He's like, did you read this somewhere? And Dipper's like, no.
Yeah, well, like, in the first time he's introduced, he, like, is able to mind control everybody. And then, like, every episode that he appears up in there, he's just a troll, pretty much. Like, he's throws
a menace.
Yeah, he throws tomatoes that stand while he's stuck in the
stocks.
Yeah, I was like, it's not the gallows. What is it? While he's stuck in the stocks. I thought he does like one other thing, but it's just like he kind of shows up and is like, just like a little brat, does something and then just moves on. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it's like it feels like except for like the one line of, did you read this somewhere? Well, no, because in the original book, like, we know that there is in the original episode, we know that he has a book. Mm-hmm. Also, one of the things that they didn't really mention, but I noticed in this, is that when Dipper is flipping through the book to find the grow and shrink crystal, he actually passes through a very important set of pages. That is, like, when he goes through, it looks like just a weird, like, drawing. But anyway, he has they do that, and but yeah, in this episode, it's just like, it feels like Gideon, I'm doing it too. Gideon is he's like, you know what? I'm tired of, like, I have the whole town fooled except for these idiots. Mm-hmm.
And they're the people that humiliated him in the first place and, like, revealed his secret.
Yeah, and so it's like one of those things where he's like, I have the whole town eating out of the palm of my hand.
And then you show up.
Yeah, well, like, it feels like the Mystery Shack was always there, and then, like, once the twins arrived and, like, started actively, like, activating and interacting with all this weird magical stuff, because doesn't it, even Robbie's like, dude, Dipper, wherever you or your weird sister are, there's weird stuff happening. And so it's like people in the town are noticing. And I think Dipper... I'm saying Dipper because I see
Gideon.
Yeah, I see Gideon because I scrolled back to the top of the wiki, and there's Gideon on there, and then above it says Little Dipper. So I keep seeing that and then saying Dipper. But Gideon is like... He knows there's at least... There, or at least in theory at this point, should be another book, because it says that he has 2. And we know there's at least 2 up to this point. And so, he's just... But what knows what is... Like, it seems like at this moment, 3 is just all monsters and oddities of Gravity Falls. And, like, we only see 1 page up to this date of Gideon's book, which is, like, an artifact he could craft. So it's, like, it would make sense that each book focuses on a different, like, area. I can't remember, and that might be answered later.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, I'm sort of remembering. It's like, I kind of remember... when they talk about the books a little bit more, but yeah, I don't know. Was there anything else that stuck out?
Nothing to me. So I think I'm good to talk about our most liked characters.
I'm trying to make sure I'm not gonna say what we said because I just saw the next episode. I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna.
I'll say the next episode is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's one of. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh.
That's a.
That's a good episode.
There you go. You wanted to say it.
Have you ever seen The Ringer? With Johnny Knoxville. It's an older movie. Don't think it's a fun movie from what I remember, but it's also like I haven't watched it in like longer than I haven't watched it in like probably just the same amount that I didn't watch The Cell. But pretty much it's Johnny Knoxville, this is the height of his like Jackass fame, and in short, they make a movie where him and his uncle's like short on money, and I think so is he, and so his uncle's like, you used to be an actor, right? He's like, yeah, but that was like just high school theater. It's like, what do you want? He's like, hey. I remember the other thing, but it's pretty much they want to go win money, and it's like, how do we do this? And they're like, here, let's enter you into the Special Olympics so we can rig it.
Oh, okay. I never watched it, but I recall the premise.
Yeah, and now I'm like, as I was saying that, I'm like, what? Oh, now I remember why. So there's a line in that movie where it's like, because like all the athletes realize that Johnny Knoxville's character is not like
not qualified to be there.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't remember the word. Like, I know what they say in the movie, but I'm like, that's no longer A-okay to say. But yeah, so he's no longer like health-wise or like meets the mental requirements that are required to be in the Special Olympics. And so they call him out on it. He's like, guys, I need this. And then he tells them, they're just like, I didn't understand any of that. But anyway, so it shows this part where they're like all becoming like friends with him, because even though they know he's lying, he's like one of the only people, like one of the only people that isn't like part of the like Special Olympics organization that like is actually legitimately like being their friend and having fun and all this stuff. So there's this line, this guy comes up, he's like, name any movie, and I forget the movie that Johnny Knoxville says, and he's like, that's a good movie, and just moves on. and he's just like, wait, what? Like, that was it? So yeah, there's some of those scenes where I'm like, did they just film like just natural interactions between him and Johnny, like all of them with Johnny Knoxville? Because there's like a line in there when apparently it's improv and Johnny Knoxville just breaks like, because he wasn't expecting one of the athletes to say, because I think they're all like mentally challenged in some way, because there's like the guy's like, yeah, I just took them all to get ice cream, and one of them just blurts out, when the F did we get ice cream? And you look back at the scene and Johnny's just like just like he has to look away and just like nope.
That's funny.
So I don't know, it could be a very well acted scene, but I like the fact I like my line of thinking of you didn't know that was coming.
Alright, so
what character you most like today?
Let's see. Today, specifically?
Yes.
That's a good question. But
Gideon,
relating
after doing
to
taxes.
relating to this episode, yeah, you have vengeful Gideon. You have Bud, who's enabling. You have Gideon's mom, who is not named, I believe, who is full of anxiety.
Just Miss Gleeful.
Miss Gleeful.
A very opposite of her last name.
You have Grunkle Stan, who's just trying to, like...
He's just having the time of his life right now. He doesn't know what's going on.
He's getting interrupted constantly, but he's, like, not aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. You have Dipper, who is being very insecure. You have Mabel, who's being insecure but showing it in a different way by bullying. You have Seuss, who's also just trying to be
He's
there.
He's just along for the ride.
We don't have a Wendy or any of the other teenagers.
We have Lazy Susan.
Lazy Susan, who's just trying to mind her business by being nice and then ends up hearing more than she'd like.
The most realistic adult in this whole episode.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think if anybody, I'm Lazy Susan, because I've had some times where I'm out in public and like I'll be charging my car in a public place. And I've had someone come up to me, he's like, yeah, I wanted an electric car, but my wife, and then went on this tangent, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't ask. Or I've gone to someone before, I'm like, oh, how are you doing today? They were like, oh, well, don't you know that 30 bad things happened to me? I'm like, oh, sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. What a loser.
So I think I'm going that I'm most like Lazy Susan this episode. Because very much like I'm just trying to like be friendly and be like, oh, okay, tell me more. And then immediately regret it and go, it's not what I was expecting.
Give me my 20 minutes back.
All right, what about you?
Let's see, most like... definitely not Gideon. I'm trying to think, like, the whole Dipper Mabel thing, like, the way
it's very teenager.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm like, I don't know, probably in the past maybe, but it's just like, I'm now at a stage in life where I'm like, I don't care. Like, whatever.
This is the lot I've been given. I've dealt with it for so many years.
I looked like I was 30 since I was 18. It's like, it's okay. Part of me wants to say Stan because, like, I'm just looking, and I feel like I say Stan a lot, but it's like, the way Stan deals with Gideon, it makes me feel, reminds me of just, the way I deal with my niece sometimes. She's just like wants to be a little terror, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
Whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, like last week they put on the live action musical version of Encanto, I think it is, and she toddler babbled at me for almost 5 to 10 minutes straight, explaining everything about Encanto. Problem is, couldn't understand a word she said. So
you pat her head. Yeah, good job.
I'm like,
good stuff.
Okay. I'm like, I saw a TikTok about Encanto, and I was like, this is what it was like. And my brother's like, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And then I found out that the angry girl from that Brooklyn
Nine-Nine.
and whatever it is, I only saw like partial bits of episodes, is the main character of Encanto, and just seeing her come out smiling and singing is like, actors are weird, man.
Yeah, I think they said that she's actually a bubbly person. Like, her actual personality is not anywhere close to that one. Because she's in something else too. She's in another musical number, and she's more of an upbeat kind of character in that. Yeah,
it's like, I don't know, to make a really grumpy character, it's like, feels like just change the makeup a little bit and don't smile.
And lower the voice at like an octave.
Yeah. So, who's your favorite this episode?
Let's see. There's a lot of good ones. I think out of everybody, I'm between Grunkle Stan and Seuss.
Mm-hmm.
I think, McGucket's really good in this one. I think I'm gonna go McGucket.
He's like the wild card. Just wasn't expecting him. I have to put Gideon. He cracks me up so much in this episode, and it's like he's very much like we're kind of seeing this backstory too, like to put in like tabletop role playing terms, like your big bad evil guy, but like we're seeing that built up where he's just like
how he gets his motivations and yeah.
And like where originally it was just like because I'm trying to remember it, he's always wanted to take Stan down, and it's like it gives a little bit of like a look into that in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never like fully explained to my knowledge, and it might be explained later, but I'm just like, why? Like, I understand like the book and like it could be explaining stuff, but where where did this unrelenting hate come towards Stan?
Well, I think in the beginning he tried to win over the property of the Mystery Shack via just being the biggest attraction. So he thought he could buy it out or do something like that. And then when the twins foiled him, then he went from, I'm not even going to play nice anymore. I'm not even going to pretend to be nice. I'm just going to totally flip.
Like, what, like, where did, instead of, like, just come, like, because I understand, like, Stan at, because we pretty much see Stan this whole series being with people that he, compared to most, enjoys being around. Like, he enjoys being around the the twins. He likes Seuss. I don't think he really even knows what Wendy does in the shop. But
Wendy doesn't bother him. So
yeah, it's just like she does her job and leaves and doesn't really, like,
bug him.
Yeah. But it's like throughout all this, it's just like, it's like outside of that circle, he's like a menace pretty much to everybody.
Oh, yeah, the diner, he's like, I want a third of this, make sure you cut the price. I want a half of this, cut the price. Like, he's very...
Yeah. And like just generally grumpy towards everybody. And like we're just seeing him as like very much like it's, there's a guy that I work with, he's a pain in the butt, super grumpy all the time, but I saw him with his grandkids and he's like you're not even the same person. And it's like I see that in Grunkle Stan. So like I guess I can understand if Gideon did come up at some point and be like, hey, and then Stan did Stan, but
and Gideon took it as a slight, but Gideon should have realized that Grunkle Stan is like that with everybody that isn't family.
Yeah, which would make sense as a 10-year-old with brain development still happening and growing, and still puberty isn't going to help him until he gets like into his 20s, when the part of the brain realizes, hey, not everyone's angry at you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just, I feel like I do this a lot when we watch these shows. It's just like go into child psychology, but yeah. Hey, it's what my brain does, and I do it inadvertently to my brothers as I talk with them.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add about this episode. I think I'll have more to talk about next episode and that one. But do you have anything else you want to add?
Nothing I can think of. It's yeah, for an episode that I forgot happened. Like as we go forward, like I'm trying to remember why I didn't even remember this episode, but I'm getting
It doesn't have a lot of big laughs in it, so that's probably why.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a major like holiday or event.
Yeah, but it's still like important to the series, but it's just like I think
once Gideon has his bigger episodes, this one kind of falls behind because you remember bigger things that happen with Gideon.
Yeah. Let's see. I wanted to see a list of the episodes. Because I'm trying to remember. After this, I remember Yeah, 13. I remember. Yeah, I'm trying to remember when there's the 19 is the episode I was thinking of, but yeah, there's just a bunch of there's pretty much 19 and 20, which is like the last episodes of this series, or not series, of this season, is yeah, I think that's where a lot of Gideon stuff really comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But then like in season 2, it feels like they still have these one-offs every once in a while, but it feels like
really
in season 2 it's like these you can see the episodes connecting. While in this one you see the episodes connect in like little bits and pieces, but it's very clear, especially once you get into the second half of season 2.
Yeah, like these are paced in a way that have slow reveals, but they feel more like, oh, you can sit down with the family and just enjoy this as a one-off. But then once season 2 starts and they start pulling things from season 1, you're like, oh, all of it matters. It mattered from the beginning.
Pull up the Charlie Day gif of him, like the wall and the strings of the wall. It's just like, who's, I forget who he's looking for.
It's like Pepe.
Yeah,
something.
Who's Pepe? As he's like, dude, you're supposed to be delivering the mail.
He's like, there is no Pepe. There is no office for him. And they're like, I forget what it is. You find out that he's like, because he's working in the basement, he's like inhaling fumes. Everything everything bad that can happen happens in that show. But yes, I guess we'll wrap it up here. We'll see you all next episode where we talk about Summerween.
Woohoo! In the middle of the end of winter. Woo!
March
Bye.
time. Bye.